Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of AFCEA International and the AFCEA Augusta Fort Gordon chapter, I'd like to welcome you to today's Regional Economic Development panel. Before we begin, I would like to thank the state of Georgia, whose economic development teams, partners, local and state elected officials, and education resources are in attendance and are happy to speak with you about our Georgia cybersecurity assets. And now I'd like to turn it over to our moderator for today, Robbie Bennett.
Good morning. All right. It's a little loud. I apologize. First of all, thank you for being here. I know this session goes over the lunch hour, but we do want to say thank you. Welcome you to what we think will be an exciting panel of unique perspectives. So the topic today is looking at the changing landscapes in the Fort Gordon Cyber District. We all know with the growth of Fort Gordon, everything happening in cyber, we're all here for this. But our panelists today give us a broad perspective from a university perspective, local government, real estate, and just regional cyber and economic development from this community. That being said, we're going to let each of our panelists introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Michael Schaffer.
Michael Schaffer, Augusta University, Strategic Partnerships and Economic Development.
All right.
I'm Todd Glover. I'm the City Administrator of North Augusta.
I'm Dennis Trotter, Jordan Trotter Commercial Real Estate. We're a local brokerage management and development firm for commercial, all things commercial real estate.
I'm Randall Toussaint. No, I'm not Randall Toussaint. I'm Tom Clark, the Executive Director of the Alliance for Fort Gordon.
Excellent. And as Tom just mentioned, Randall Toussaint is on his way. He will be here shortly and will be added to the panel in just a little bit. That being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am Robbie Bennett. I'm the Executive Director for the Development Authority of Columbia County, one of the local economic development offices as well. So the topic today, we really want to focus on regional economic development. Economic development is a team sport. Everybody on this panel, really everybody in this room has a role to play in that. But we want to get started, get a little perspective of what's happening in the Augusta region as well as the state of Georgia. That being said, want to go down the line and have all of you answer this question. The greater Augusta region has been experiencing an economic renaissance for many years. The last 5 years have been particularly exciting in our area. Other than growth at Fort Gordon, what do you see as the most impactful change in this region? And what do you predict over the next 5 years? Michael?
Well, I know this sounds a little self-serving considering where I come from, but I do think that the consolidation of Augusta University to form Augusta University from the Medical College of Georgia, Georgia Health Science, we've gone through a name change a few times, and Augusta State College to create a research university. I think that helps set a lot of opportunities looking forward. That joins us here in Augusta with other flagships across Georgia, the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Georgia State. So the opportunities that, along with the changing landscape, I think will have a big impact.
All right. Todd?
I think one of the more overlooked aspects of our community is the medical that we have. We have 3 large downtown hospitals for a community our size. That is fairly unique. We also have a trauma center and a first top-notch burn center in the area. So I believe our medical drives a lot. We do have not only Fort Gordon, but Savannah Riverside. Now that Savannah Riverside has stabilized over the past about 10 years, actually starting to grow missions there. Certainly that's been a sustainer in our economy for a long time, but I believe growth really outside of those 2 sectors has been mostly in medical.
Thanks, Todd. I'm the real estate guy in the room, and I would going to take a slightly different position and name one project I think off base that has really been and will be transformative for the area, but that is what Michael organized with the Georgia Cyber Center. And not only is it needed for the obvious workforce development, training, those things, but from a real estate perspective, we have, our market has not seen a newly constructed Class A office building in decades, just from, stalemate of demand. And because of that, our market office rent rates have remained at a really reasonable level, but as construction costs continue to climb significantly, our market rent rates don't keep up. And Michael's project and the Cyber Center, they jumped out and took the lead on Class A office space development to house and create the environment for the educational world to merge with the defense contractor world and set new office market rent rates to help illustrate to the private sector what can be done. That's a huge leap of faith that the private sector was going to have a hard time underwriting and really getting behind, and somebody's got to go first, and that project has done it, and we think will set the tone for additional buildings, additional space at a new, more achievable market rate and spur other private investment. But again, somebody's got to go first, and that project gets the award for that for sure.
So with the projected $1.6 billion worth of infrastructure improvements on Fort Gordon out to the year 2028, a lot of that work will be contracted out locally. We've seen large defense industries either moving a shingle here in this area or increasing the presence that is already here. Fort Gordon, as everyone knows, has experienced tremendous growth with the Army Cyber Headquarters arrival. Much of Army Cyber is here already, but I was talking to General Fogarty about 900 to 1,000 more folks will move here by June of 2020.
Very good. So let's go back to Michael for a minute. To Dennis's point, the Cyber Center is a phenomenal asset to the community, the state, and the region. That being said, now that you're open, what are your goals going forward for the building or buildings?
Right. So, as Dennis pointed out, what makes it a little unique to help answer that is to have what we had heard from the leadership at Fort Gordon as Army Cyber was announced was we need academia, government, and industry in one building. And I'm sure y'all have heard that. You hear it over and over and over. And we did that. So we've put it all in one building. So as what we call industry, our resident partners. So academia is in the building, government's in the building, both with DoD partners and with Georgia Bureau of Investigation. So we have both state and federal. But what we've got to grow with our partners, I think what's next, which is an ecosystem in Augusta to where we can get after solving problems through innovation. I think the academic side of it, we have great opportunities there. The only place in the state of Georgia where you have the technical college system and the university system co-located in one building. So you've got everywhere from 2-year to 4-year to research all in one place, and you have those students intermingling with one another through the building. Now, if you don't get excited about that, most folks that are in the industry look at that as 500 possible interns or employees on the future, right? That get training side by side with our federal partners, with our state partners. But it's creating that ecosystem that largely hasn't existed here. That's the challenge. But we ask that of every person that moves into the space, what are you going to give back? So it's also the exciting part of that, because everybody has stepped up to do that. And I think each year, if you come back to TechNet, as you watch, you will see the transformation. We see it because we're here every day. I get to see it because I'm in the buildings, and you watch it happen. So I think that's our next step It'll probably take longer than the 387 days to build a building, but I think if what we have seen over the last year since we've been opened, we're off to a great start.
Excellent. So I'm going to open this one up. Michael gave us a little bit of a segue. Open it up to anyone on the panel who really wants to take a crack at it. You mentioned starting and having that ecosystem here to really sustain us. We have a lot of growth happening in our region. All of us have a focus on strategic growth, really making sure we're doing this the right way. That being said, what do you think our region's top priorities should be to sustain that growth? And what do you see as our biggest opportunity going forward?
So I think it's educating our children to fill the workforce needs. A couple years ago, the Alliance teamed with the Adopt a School program on Fort Gordon. Just one program as an example, they ran a Cyber Patriot program. And that's Cyber Patriot teams that are in high schools in the grades 6 through 12. And 3 years ago, this region, although a cyber center of excellence, only had 18 teams in our high schools. Then we grew to 84. We grew to 100. And this is with teaming with the Cyber Protection Brigade to get experts, NSA, Georgia, the ACE Committee, Todd Boudreau. And then we became a Cyber Patriot Center of Excellence, and now we're the Cyber Patriot Center of Excellence for the entire nation. And that took teams like Mosaic. It took the business community, Fort Gordon, our college institutions, a collaboration of folks. Our committee was led by Ms. Karen Nixon from Augusta University, but there's 2 states and 7 counties worth of educators in one room trying to make sure that we are putting programs into place so that our kids can fill these jobs in the years to come.
Very good. Anybody else?
I would add to it as all those programs churn out a wonderful workforce, we have to continue to provide them the amenities on the weekends they need, the living quarters that they like, in the format that they like, and the locations that they like, and to support that so that once we train them, they stay. If we train them and they leave, we're not doing ourselves any justice. So it's incumbent on the mostly the private sector, but also on planning and zoning staffs from the various municipalities around the area to facilitate the style of living that that workforce demands. And it's not uniform across that workforce, but we've got to be accommodating to their style with living, with schools, transportation, and all that's got to keep up, or else we're going to train them and then we're going to send them off to other markets to be productive, and that doesn't help us at all.
I would echo that. For those of you who are not local, across the river is a different city, a different state. And so we are North Augusta, South Carolina, and as Michael mentioned earlier, we've really got to expand an ecosystem through our region. We're kind of like the neighbor that's mooching off your Wi-Fi. We are the neighbor that's benefiting from the cyber growth at Fort Gordon here in Augusta. But it does take our entire region because, we have Columbia County, we have Augusta, we have North Augusta, we have Aiken. We have a lot of communities here, and while perhaps not as large as some of the larger cities, if you take the best of what we all have, we do have a lot of amenities that are attractive to a workforce. And that's what we've really concentrated on, to echo Dennis's comments, is if we can create a place where not only if a company locates here to service Fort Gordon, that's the first issue. The second issue is for them to attract a workforce to be here. And those folks have to want to live here to work for those contractors. So we've really had to concentrate on not only looking at how we attract those businesses, but how do we attract those employees? And so that's what we've tried to do across the river. Hopefully you'll get a chance while you're here to drive across the bridge. I know we have a Green Jackets game tonight. if you'd like to come and attend. But really just not only catering to the businesses, but the workers who are coming for those businesses.
All right. Anything else you want to add, Michael? So just out of curiosity from the audience, how many of you are local to the Augusta area now? All right. Very good. I think that probably helps us just a little bit to understand what's going on.
In Georgia, and how many live in South Carolina?
How many live in Georgia? Okay.
But I would, more and more, I will tell you, just from back to what Todd said about the healthcare system, if you look at the number of people that through our organization that are researchers or doctors, etc., GBI that's in the building that's attracting and hiring agents here, they're in North Augusta. I mean, it is a regional. I mean, it's typically a little more split than what I just saw in this room. But
right.
There's a lot.
So just one bit of information for everyone in here. The Augusta MSA is a 7-county, 2-state region. So 622,000 people in those 7 counties. But from where we stand today, it's well over 1 million people within a 60-mile radius. So Augusta has definitely taken new shape over the past decade or so. And the opportunities we see happening here really change the landscape and give us something to look forward to. We all like to talk about economic development and economic drivers, what's really going on in our economy and the community. The problem is, very much like trying to define cyber and cybersecurity, I can ask every one of you and I will get a different definition of what economic development is and what you see as our major economic drivers. I want to give the panelists a little bit of time to talk about this. What do you see as our top drivers in our economy today? And what do you see as the top impact for economic development happening from the federal, state, and local level?
You're up.
Me? I'll say the opportunity zones for us have been huge. I would say that's probably the most aggressive economic development initiative I've seen from the federal government in my career. I know that the state of South Carolina and the governor of South Carolina, once he came down here and he took a tour of the cyber center, he saw the potential impact of cyber in our region, and he made sure that we were an opportunity zone to help encourage startups, to help encourage relocation of businesses. So from a federal perspective, I would say opportunity zones. I would say that our State Department of Commerce, which in a lot of southeastern states typically are very good at attracting manufacturing, but not so much on white-collar jobs, they have begun to see the light on cyber and have begun to retool. Not only they're good at attracting the Boeings and the Bridgestones of the world, but now they've got to start attracting the defense contractors, the white-collar technology jobs to our state. And so I think you're starting to see a transformation on our statewide level as well.
I think when we drill down to the local level on those, we've got a collection of development authorities throughout the counties that are wonderful and very helpful to our projects. But facilitating that comes down also to local ordinances regarding parking. We've had to rewrite our ordinances in Augusta regarding microbreweries and restaurants cohabitating with breweries, things like that, to encourage that type of development that the workforce needs for enjoyment. Reworking the parking arrangements in downtown Augusta, that's a big project now, to facilitate more housing downtown as well. And while those projects don't necessarily get all the glitter and the glam like a Boeing or a Bridgestone, small tweaks to a parking ordinance can be the difference between a $40 million housing project in downtown or not. and which is the difference between 200 new living units that we all need or not. And so those policies coming out of the local governments towards zoning, towards parking, towards density, where I think a lot of our zoning ordinances and development ordinances haven't necessarily kept pace with the living demands in today's climate. Having those effectively updated is going to be paramount to continuing on the economic growth.
So I'll go back to the Georgia Cyber Center simply because it was economic development. It was a tool of the state. If you go back and look at the money came by way of, it was economic development. As Tom mentioned earlier, there's $1.6 billion already invested or being invested at Fort Gordon. That number goes higher as we move forward. So if you think about the federal government as opposed to just being the federal government, think of it as a business. That's an investment in the state. Georgia Department of Economic Development and the previous governor's office, the current governor's office, support these efforts through the Georgia Department of Economic Development. So you're talking about $100 million in cash investment. That's a pretty damn good economic tool. It gets you something that can be used as a catalyst. It's not supposed to take the wind out of everything, but it is the thing that was put here to help train. If you look at what we're talking about, what we heard from Fort Gordon was we need help for an educated workforce. And part of this is to help provide that workforce. Well, that helps the whole region. So I'd say I just have to give kudos to the Georgia Economic Development Authority, those folks, and what they do and the help they've brought. But with that investment comes our mission now to do the training. How do we make sure that Fort Gordon gets what they need, and how do we get to make sure all of those who are here or that are contractors, et cetera, how do we help produce that workforce moving forward?
Fort Gordon continues to be the number one employer in the region with over 30,000 folks that are assigned and reporting to work every day, and then the almost 75,000 retirees and their families that live in a 40-mile radius. That coupled with the $2.4 billion a year of economic impact on an annual basis. That's, Mr. Tutt, who cuts my hair, that's the dry cleaning place. It pours money across the entire region, and this two states together continuing to make this a great place to live, work, play, and learn. That's what will elevate this entire area, I believe.
Very good point. So as we look forward, look at what's going on in the region, we know right now there's a lot of talk about what's happening in the future from the economy standpoint. That being said, what trends are you seeing right now, and what do you think is going to happen over the course of 2020? And what impact would any type of downturn have on this region?
I think our region is extremely blessed that our core economic drivers are the medical and government sectors that they're certainly not immune from downturn, but they're not as susceptible as the private sector in a lot of ways. So we are really, really fortunate in that regard. I think in the 2008 recession, our market never quite had the doom and gloom of a lot of other markets, really of similar size in Georgia and South Carolina. We never had the highs that they did in 2005 and 6, and we never had the lows that they did in 08, 9, and 10. The state of Georgia was, unfortunately, the number one state in the nation for bank failures, yet our region had none, and we're the second largest market in the state. So I think it speaks volumes to the stability of our local economy, and we're all very fortunate for that. I think one of the some of the trends you'll continue to see that are really nationwide as well, but we're not insulated from is continued consolidation and store closures in the retail segment. and retail is certainly being reinvented. And y'all see that when you drive home every day past the shopping centers as some of the longtime tenants go and some new tenants pop up that used to be we used to laugh at, but now the dance studios, the nail salons, and the churches fill up a whole lot of vacant space that we didn't have to used to have not to encounter very often. But we'll see continued consolidation in that, and the retailers that are surviving right now are the ones that are effectively merging their brick and mortar with their online presence, with delivery, with social media, and rolling that all into one operation where the customer can move freely between those formats at their will. And if any one of those legs falls out of the stool, that's when that retailer starts to struggle tremendously. And so you see Amazon moving into brick and mortar, and then you see the brick and mortar guys moving into more web and delivery services. So we'll continue to see those lines being blurred significantly. And while that's a national trend, you're going to see it locally in a tremendous way.
First, Tom, let me say I'm disappointed that you're not responsible for that haircut. Somebody else does that for you, but I always...
You're just jealous.
Yeah, I am. The name escapes me at the minute, the author. I read a book recently called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the premise of the book is that historically in the Industrial Revolution it's very disruptive to labor force because you're mechanizing processes, which displaces workers. And the premise of his book is that as we're entering the cyber age, we're now entering a time where computers are doing jobs that a lot of lower skilled workers have done in the past. And so now as more and more things become computer based, then there's more and more opportunities for cyber and cyber protection. But then what do we do? Not only we're talking about growing a future workforce, but what are we going to do with people who are displaced because their jobs now are done by AI? Or now that's a little bit further down the road, but if any of you have seen the demonstration from the Google Assistant on your phone, if you saw that video, that it actually calls and makes appointments for you. And your job right now is that you work in a call center, then I would think 2 to 3, 4 years down the road that call center may be a computer on the back end and not people. And what do we do with that workforce going forward? So not only are we having to build up a new cyber workforce through our products through the school, but as technology advances and continues to advance, we're going to have opportunities for a whole new economy of new jobs, but they're going to be displaced. I mean, the whole new economy of, I mean, how many people worked at Blockbuster? There's no Blockbuster Video anymore. So similar to that, we're going to have an economy of people in new jobs that didn't exist 5 years ago. On top of that, we are seeing some different things from the Fed moving forward, but like Dennis said, in a medical and government-based economy that we have here that's very strong, we have not seen the recession numbers that the rest of the country has had in the past, and hopefully that'll continue forward.
Nothing really other than just repeating. When you take in our health care, the number of hospitals, 3, 4, if you go all the way to Aiken. If you think about Southern Company, Georgia Power building 2 new reactors down the road, the number of the workforce that's down there completing that project. Different missions coming to Savannah Riverside over in Aiken County, and then what we're all here for today, which is TechNet, with what's going on at Fort Gordon. The number of contractors coming in to service that, not only to build it out, but then to service once it's there. We just don't get the highs and lows from the amount of state funding and the federal funding that flows through the region.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about workforce and keeping the workforce trained locally and keeping them here. Let's talk a little bit about the talent recruitment piece what's going on here from a quality of life standpoint. I know everybody at the table has been involved in some sort of development activity, especially Todd over in North Augusta and Dennis. What are y'all seeing as great quality of life pieces throughout the region that will help change the landscape?
So we travel up to D.C. to talk to our cyber relocation team, work with Paul Legier and his team. One of the things we tell folks about our area is that when we give you your 2 hours back that you spend in traffic, you can be to Atlanta. You could be to the ocean. We're going to give you 3 times the house that you get there for the price. The cost of living here is absolutely amazing in comparison. So we don't have some of the things that other areas have, but as a region, we have a very attractive story to tell. Whether you're buy a house in Aiken for your horses to run free, we are getting a population that is used to driving in D.C. traffic, so commuting just out to Aiken will be no big deal for them. Higher ranking folks with some expendable income, and coming to an area, Candy and I can go to Lady Annabella and watch anyone from Kid Rock to George Strait, where we can go to our farm fresh restaurants downtown, eat at Bee's Knees, those type of things. And we can travel in those 2 hours, and our kids can go to great schools that have cyber-infused programs in the high school, then go to the 2- and 4-year universities that are CAE accredited college, jump down the road, my son can go to Georgia Tech. So we have all these great options, and every day they seem to get better and better as we come together as a cooperating region.
To me, the recruitment has changed. The paradigm has changed in my career. And Robbie, you could probably even speak to this. It used to be we would chase industry, and then the workforce would come to us to work at the industry. Now it's flipped. We chase the workforce, and the industry chases the workforce. And more we're finding as millennials are becoming the majority part of our workforce is that, they want to live in a place that has things to do, places to go, recreate, be outside, walk, exercise, do all those types of quality of life issue, and they're less interested. A lot of them want to rent apartments. They want to they spend less on their houses so they can spend more to do things. And we've tried to provide those. We have at North Augusta, we're 18 miles from Savannah Riverside. We're 14 miles from Fort Gordon. We did an advertising campaign around Fort Meade, and our byline was close enough for government work. And so we feel like we have a good quality of life that's close enough for people to enjoy the types of things. But we've tried to introduce some urban type of lifestyle that people like, the live, work, and play environment. Riverside Village, you can work, have a job, live there, and recreate, eat, and have recreation all within the same footprint. And I think people more and more are becoming attracted to those types of things. Dennis could speak to that. They're a partner with us on that. But trying to attract that workforce, give them some of the amenities that they're used to coming from larger urban areas, but then taking advantage of the not as heavy traffic and spend that extra time.
Todd nailed it for sure. It's incumbent on us to put the amenities out there, both weekend amenities, living components, to retain the workforce. And a lot of times, our market, the first thing people associate with our market, obviously, is a golf tournament, which is a wonderful thing, and it does an enormous amount of good for our community and one of our best corporate citizens, if not the best. But there's a lot of other stories to tell in the area. for people that don't have any connection to that tournament that are moving to the city. And it's the CVB and Augusta does a great job of that. Columbia County does as well. Todd's group does too. But between our canals, rivers, Ironman, the trail systems, the Miller Theater, Lady Antebellum Theater, we have a wealth of entertainment and amenity options available that we have to work and keep that message resonating with everybody, that there is we're not just a 1 week a year market in April, and the other 51 weeks here, aside from a few weeks in August, are typically a mild climate and really enjoyable and really have a lot to speak of that Tom and Todd have already brought up. So it's keeping that message out there is what's of critical importance for the folks that are looking to move here.
Michael. Hello. All right. So, Michael, I've had the chance to travel with you and listen to you talk to others, and the excitement that you share about the Cyber Center and what's happening here is unmatched. There's no question that Augusta University is truly the champion for our region on what's happening in this market. If some other community is wanting to do what we've done, want to build off of their successes, what advice would you give them?
$100 million. No. Honestly, we visited a lot other communities to look at what had happened in other communities that had some significant projects, like what was moving to Georgia. We went to Fort Meade, went to San Antonio. Since then, we've been to candidates. You're right, we've traveled and looked. And so we tried to learn from those who had started this travel before us, who were 10 years ahead of us, right? And watch what they did in their community. I'll look at San Antonio and see what they've done. And you think about all the things you just talked about, and I look across the river at what Todd and North Augusta has done. What they're building over there is so complementary to what we have here. But I'll tell you this, we were told no a lot. You can't do it. There's a lot of people that will tell you why you can't do it. Luck is important. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the state of Georgia had a rainy day fund of over $2 billion. Not every state has that. You have to have a willingness of your elected officials. We did at the state and the local level. So a good bit of luck. But I will say, as most of you work within communities or who you represent as a contractor that may be in multiple cities, we learned from Fort Meade, they said, you need to do this, right? And part of that was, I'm back to what our general said, you need academic, government, industry in the same place. What I would say is listen, and then, like anything in innovation, don't be scared to fail. As simple as that sounds, when you're dealing with government and having to report in and what you're doing, very seldom do people not say, well, I have to meet this metrics. But to truly tackle the problem that you hear about, you're going to hear about it all week here, or anytime you listen in the leadership, is to solve the problem of 300,000 plus jobs in the cyber industry. We cannot afford to continue to do it like we've always done it. Somebody's got to take that step. The stars align for Georgia and for South Carolina in our region, but I think that it helps realize it can be done. I'm not going to repeat where we were, but we traveled overseas, and there was a country we went to, and as soon as you land, the first thing they want to meet with you. But I say this story because it's important to what I just said, is they said, well, we're standing up and we're economic development, this new unit. They said, we did investment last year, and at the end of the year, over 50% of our investments succeeded, basically. The story was we didn't push far enough to the edge. They wanted more than 50% to fail. Now, can you imagine going back to your elected leader or your boss and saying, I just invested and half of it failed? But if we don't change the way we do it, we're not going to solve it. We can't keep up with the problem. So I guess it is, we've been fortunate. We've had, I think, 17 states visit us, including the sites that we went to when we visited to put it together. We've gotten great support for those once we laid out the vision. So I would offer if we can be helpful in that and saying you can do it, you just got to do it a little bit different.
Very good. So we have our newest panelists joining us. Thank you. Randall Toussaint is Senior Project Manager for Georgia Department of Economic Development. Welcome. Very excited to have you here and give you a minute to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the state of Georgia's perspective and why this is important.
Sure. So, as he mentioned, my name is Randall Toussaint, and sorry for the delay. I have a very, very easy job. My job is to help promote all of the great assets that we have within the cybersecurity industry here within the state of Georgia. And to be honest, this doesn't happen without collaboration. Our whole approach to what we do involves working with both our local partners and our regional partners to identify what assets can best support the needs of companies who are existed in moving into the state of Georgia. I think we're all aware, I guess the last snapshot that was taken was that by ballpark about 2022, there's going to be a workforce shortage in the field of cybersecurity that'll be ballpark around 1.8 million unfilled positions. You think about that, Right now, the unemployment rate's at about 3% nationally. In the tech field, we all know it's actually about 1% because we're kind of higher in poaching, and you see a lot of rotation. But the question becomes, how do you support the needs of companies and grow that job creation in the midst of these challenges? So the way that we do that is through partnerships. You take a look at what's happening here within the Augusta metro area, and it's incredible. Efforts like the Georgia Cyber Center, a single building, an entity that would allow for not only the university level, but technical colleges to be able to provide training resources and deploy and meet the needs of companies is unique. You combine that with a lot of the assets that we have in terms of incentives in order to help support companies as they create those jobs. It creates a new toolkit that we haven't really seen before for the cybersecurity industry. The state of Georgia is pleased to offer any community that is seeking to attract jobs the ability to provide job tax credits to offset that corporate income tax liability. In addition to that, we're also able to support the companies by helping to expedite their navigation through a lot of the processes that usually slow you up on the gridlock. So for those reasons, we're pleased to share that we're now ranked as the #1 state to do business within the United States of America. It's phenomenal. But again, it's easy because we've got great partners and we work together in order to move forward and move the ball down the field.
So we're about the halfway mark for the panel, so I want to open it up for questions from the audience. I've seen a few of you kind of look like you want to ask questions. And then the rest of this time, we're going to make it a conversation. We want everybody to have a chance to give us your feedback and engage with the panel so that we can really make sure we're addressing what you need to know, what you want to know. So, any questions? Don't jump at once.
I just don't want to be quoted. Well, you know, transportation in Augusta is it's certainly not. It is mine equally from being a part of Georgia Cyber Center, Augusta University, and being just a good citizen. It is part of my responsibility as well. We are in the middle of talking about the city of doing a different transportation arrangement downtown that is pay to park. That doesn't always go over well with some. Many of you who come to Augusta come from cities where paying to park just isn't a problem. I mean, I've worked in Washington, I've been in Atlanta, I've been in Aiken, I've been in North Augusta and Augusta. It's difficult sometimes to convince people you should pay to park. They want to pull right up front. So we've got some education to do if we're going to do, as we solve that. It's affecting, when you look at housing downtown. But I will say the leadership understands the growth, such as yourself. You moved here 4 years ago. You come from another, wherever you've moved from that may have been a larger city but had a better transportation. I will tell you, as the university, so we have added a new route downtown because of the Georgia Cyber Center and other things. Augusta's looking at some alternatives that are smaller type of vehicles that are able to be on the roads up to a certain speed limit. I think there's a lot of discussion going on, but we have to change some mindset here. I think the leadership on both sides of the river understand we need to tackle that. It's probably not the precise answer, but I can tell you we're looking at it. I know many people are looking at it, but it'll take some education.
The biggest part in what we have not had is density. Property here was cheap enough that people could keep buying property out further and building businesses instead of building back into an urban core. That's typically your toughest challenge with public transportation, is getting a density. Whereas density is way more efficient for a city than sprawl. It costs us more to provide services to a large subdivision on the outskirts of town than it does to a big high-rise apartment complex in our downtown. And so I think as you see more of an attention to our downtown, both on both sides of the river, we get more density in our downtown. I think you'll see the transportation come from that. Most of your large cities that you have transportation stays within that urban core. If you're going out to a shopping mall on the outskirts of town, you're Ubering or taxiing out there or you'd be spending 2 hours on a bus trying to get there and back. So hopefully, I think as the density increases in our downtown, the transportation piece will be the part that follows.
And you're right. This is a long-term issue. It's a known issue. We have not hit a critical mass in all the counties truly to warrant transportation in the way some of the other communities have done. But there is the Augusta Regional Transportation System ARTS that looks at this, and leadership from the three counties, Aiken County, Richmond County, and Columbia County, are all involved. But the best way to really get engaged on it is to reach out to the elected officials. They're the ones who really have the biggest opportunity. And as we continue to grow and continue to listen to what our residents are wanting in the region, you will see change. It's just, it takes time. So, other questions? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dave Gentili, and given the CSRA's economic and technical footprint, I'm just curious what has been done or what can be done to bring 5G to the area. Atlanta, Seattle, Los Angeles, New York, 5G is an amazing thing that Verizon and AT&T is working on. It's going to revolutionize everything we do. What is the CSRA doing? What is Augusta doing to bring 5G here? Not
so I will save y'all. Thank you, Sue. It is a topic that the state of Georgia is looking at this session. The Assembly actually passed small cell legislation that gives us the ability to look at this and go further with it. I know companies like AT&T and Verizon and others across the state are looking at this. It's just getting the infrastructure built up so that they can do it. So it's coming. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So I've been here about 4 years, and the growth that I've seen over the past 4 years has been amazing. I mean, see, just downtown, Broad Street, like all the new shops opening up, I mean, everybody's really excited. It's hard not to be excited about all the stuff that's going on in Augusta. But in y'all's view, I kind of want to get a perspective on what you saw as potential challenges for Augusta and the whole region to the economic growth that we believe, what Augusta could be in the next 5 years. What are the challenges?
Go for it, Randall.
I'll dive in. I think, and this isn't just particularly an Augusta problem, or a challenge rather, but it's kind of one that we're recognizing that we're entering in just as a state. Right now we're witnessing a very interesting pivot where many corporations are beginning to turn towards tech. I think we've recently seen several car manufacturers announce that they're calling themselves no longer car production companies but technology companies. As that happens, part of what our responsibility as a region, as a state, is tasked with being is to go out and really present Georgia's assets to those companies that are seeking to move in and to grow. But there's just an issue of perception versus reality. We have an amazing story to tell in Augusta, and I think we're a best kept secret. And I think the state of Georgia really is in that same boat in terms of the amount of the level of talent that we can produce, our cost of living, and the low wages, and then the quality of life. But I'm also pleased to share, on the opposite side of that statement, the teams that you see in the room are able to really tell that story in a way that's very unique. I've been in some of these meetings where everyone's rolled up their sleeves and really had some very poignant discussions about the benefits of our region. And it's resounding, whether we're talking to companies in Silicon Valley or the Bay Area, or we're going up to Canada and having discussions with health IT companies, or we're traveling overseas to Israel to talk to cybersecurity companies there. I think the message about Augusta is really beginning to take hold.
I would say, if you look right now, the growth that we're getting is mainly in entertainment and restaurants, because those are typically internet-proof businesses. Retail is, the smaller retailers are struggling because there's just about, Amazon Prime is going to one-day delivery now. Just about anything you want product-wise you can order and have here. So bricks and mortar retail is more difficult for us to bring in, but most of the growth that you see that we're bringing in is things that you want, and you want it now. So it's, if you order food over the internet, if you want to go out to dinner, you're not going to wait till tomorrow to get it. Top Golf coming to town, things like that. So I think you're seeing more of the growth that we're able to bring is actually more in the food and entertainment than it is actually bricks and mortar retail.
That's dead on point, Todd. I think the challenges we face in the near term are providing the housing units that the workforce demands. A nice suburban gated single-family residential subdivision with sidewalks and streetlights is a very nice place to be, but it's not for everybody. And those cookie-cutter subdivisions, while they have their place in Americana for sure, are not what everybody wants today, nor the pride of a large mortgage payment. And so it's incumbent on just the private sector, but also the many municipalities and counties that make up the CSRA to retool their zoning ordinances and development ordinances to allow for these alternative style of living units, whether it is apartments, townhomes, single-family homes, but with zero setbacks, with common amenity packages and shared green space, much like the ballpark project in Hammond's Ferry. Those have got to be addressed and dealt with, because the gated, pretty single-family community that sits out near the middle school and the high school is great, but it's not for everybody. And I think we're starting to see some of the effects of that as well, with housing starts and housing permits just on true single-family homes, against the unbelievable absorption rate we have seen in some of the newer apartment communities that have come up in the market here just in the last 12 months. The absorption rate of the Class A products has been unprecedented and has set new market rates, and we're seeing more activity in that sector than we've ever seen because of all that.
All right. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
It's a very difficult thing to do, very difficult. And if you try to limit the supply of those housing products and those amenities, then the natural byproduct is prices start skyrocketing. And then we're back to the same scenario those folks are trying to avoid too, where a nice house is $1,000 a foot or more, unless you want to live 60 miles away and commute an hour to get here. So it's a double-edged sword as well. So our T-Splost package, which is our local transportation sales tax option, does a wonderful job of providing expanded roads with better capacities, so that folks that live in some of the outlying communities to have quicker access to get into the core parts of the area. The utility systems keeping up, school systems keeping up. But it is a balancing act. It's a balancing act for sure, and we're in the promotional phase of these new projects, which we need to be. A lot of communities have already seen that promotional phase, and now they're in the punitive phase where they want to keep them all out, and are writing ordinances to keep out more and more growth and development because they've maxed out. They haven't kept up their utility systems and their school systems. And I'm not accusing anybody locally of that, but other states and other communities have certainly gone to that route. We're a long ways from that now, and because if we take that approach, ultimately it's going to come down to be a limiting factor for the workforce we want to be here if we can't provide the housing and the amenities for them. And in the long term, that's an unhealthy trend for our market, we think.
I think it's infrastructure, proper planning, make sure that we have the ability to accommodate additional vehicle traffic over time. I have a friend who lives in Charleston. He tells me Charleston's an hour from Charleston. They are experiencing rapid growth there with Boeing and Volvo and things. I don't know that we'll have the growth to that scale, at least to this point, but I do think it's proper planning, as Dennis mentioned, having that T-Splost and putting in the infrastructure. But I also think that density is a solution to those types of things. If you have people living in your urban core and not in vehicles, if you have amenities there where they're walking and they have grocery stores in their downtown, where they're walking to work, where they're walking to shop, those types of things solve traffic and gridlock. So we will need to look to those things more and more in the future, having more possibility of living in downtown, even outside of apartments, maybe even ownership, condos, things of that nature, to give people an opportunity to actually own properties in an area where they are less dependent on vehicles.
All right. I'm going to give you guys one more opportunity, one more question. any community that's gone through the growth we've had, Todd, you've mentioned a couple of examples of that, there's always lessons to be learned. So my question for you, over the past 5 years of growth that we've seen, what are some of the missed opportunities or lessons learned that we need to make sure stays in the forefront for the next 5 years? And if you had a magic wand, what do you accomplish over the next 5 years? One thing.
I don't know if I'm going to answer that exactly. So I guess it's continued building of an ecosystem here in our core. Just kind of wrap up in what you asked about density, back to a couple of questions earlier. We still need that to create some of the ecosystem that I think we need. But if you look across, anytime I would take somebody to the top of one of the buildings at Georgia Cyber Center, you look across the river, it's gorgeous, and you're looking at those homes that are affordable, that are a third of the price. But then you also look at the project that North Augusta's done, $230 million, and then you've got housing of another sort, and it's all right here, and then you've got a baseball field. We're just starting to create that. You know, I kind of knew that question was coming, and I asked, and I thought to myself, what would you change? Because there's a state line here, and I've been within the government or some sort of public role for 26 years, many years ago we talked about regionalism, but we really didn't practice it, right? I mean, we still had a river between us. That's gone away. And because of that, the ability to do the planning that you asked for, whether it's the buses you asked for, not to get to a regional growth as opposed to you're going to do your thing, we'll do our thing. I've seen a lot of those walls come down. And so if we are good planners and we do this correctly, I guess that's my vision is going forth. And I think we're in the right place and we have the drivers at hand and the leadership in the community, whether it's the chamber or it's our elected officials. I've seen a change over the last 5 years of a lot of people working together to make sure we don't create something that a lot of people are coming here so that we can try to create planned growth. So.
Yeah, I think Michael was a little humble earlier when he was talking about luck. You know, I've heard luck described as where preparation meets opportunity. And if we really look back in lessons learned, the riverfront property where the two Georgia Cyber buildings are sitting today, there were two other proposals that would have taken that property up that really would not have afforded that opportunity. So when you look back, I think the planning for either of those opportunities is what fast-tracked the cyber buildings being there. And so I think looking back, lessons learned is we really got to plan this out, and if we have that basis for the plan, then we can react quicker to opportunities that come to us. And I know there was an RFP you responded to for a whole other project that really got the planning going for that, and I really think maybe I don't know, you might say differently, probably advanced those cyber buildings by a year. And so I really think learning from not all missed opportunities are a bad thing. Absolutely.
Dennis?
Yeah, our area is a little unique in that I think I can count 7 distinct government entities within the CSRA, each with its own city council, mayor, city administrator, county commissioners, police force, zoning ordinance, development ordinance, you name it, top to bottom, and and their own separate agendas too. The coordination of all those is paramount going forward. We haven't always had it. So to Michael's point, I can remember in the not too distant future where chambers of commerce were splitting from each other, development authorities were splitting from each other, counties were splitting from each other, and it was an effort to, we believe in this type of growth, y'all believe in that type of growth, let's go do our own separate thing. And it really wasn't that long ago that was the true mentality. Fortunately, I believe we have firmly broken out of that stronghold here. And Columbia County offers a slightly different set of amenities than Richmond. Richmond offers a little bit different set than North Augusta. Aiken's a little bit different set as well. But we all need each other. The growth, while the cyber center buildings and the base is in Richmond County, Aiken County, City of Aiken, City of North Augusta, Columbia County, the City of Harlem, you name it, everybody gets the benefit. And, if one county wants to say, well, the setback on your house needs to be this, and we don't want apartments there, but we want them here, that's fine. But the overall overarching theme is that we all get the benefit from it. And if one of those legs falls out, they're the ones that will suffer, and not the rest that keep the cohesion together. So, we read a lot on the front page of the paper about city councils arguing and commissioners arguing over what seem to be petty things. And while that's sometimes true, we got to keep the main focus and the main issues in focus, which are the overall area and the growth of the area, because that's what's going to bring everybody's values up, absorption up, new housings to the market, outside investment that come in. And I think that's a key thing we're starting to see in our market. I haven't touched on yet, but a lot of our local developer and builder community can't see the forest through the trees. We're probably guilty of it ourselves sometimes. And where we see, a dead deal and no way to make it work and negativity, we bring in somebody who has never been to Augusta before, and they see nothing but opportunity. And we need those folks to come in and unlock a lot of the potential we have when sometimes our local builder and developer community can't do it. And that's not a slight on them, but when we've been living here for your entire life, you see things in a little different light than if you just come in for a 48-hour trip with a fresh load of capital in your back pocket looking for markets that are growing. And so there is a definite need for that. We are seeing that with a lot of with some office projects, some apartment projects, and other residential types coming in, and we need to continue to foster that for them to have a coexist with our local builder and developer community for the good of everybody, whether it's in Richmond County, Columbia County, City of Aiken, City of North Augusta. Really doesn't make any difference. We got to get them here and get those projects going.
This is always a hard question, because the first thing my mind goes to is, if I could go back 5 years, I would just make sure the Falcons play the second half of that Super Bowl. But, the group's really focused in on a lot of the lessons learned, and a lot of things were done exceptionally well, to make this happen. So I guess when you kind of look at, 5 years forward, what things can come about. What do you see? I think the question was if you could wave a magic wand and look into the future. One of the big challenges that we're noticing nationwide is that there's a lack of diversity in terms of talent all over the tech field. There is also a lack of inclusion. What's unique about Augusta is that as it's growing as a technology hub, it really has the opportunity to become a national model for diversity and inclusion in the workforce as it relates to technology. I do think that that's something, because of the partnerships that are in place and the work that the K-12 system has put in place, the university, the technical college, Chamber of Commerce, all the partners that make up the ecosystem. I think a lot of those programs that are have been put in place at this stage and over the last 5 years are going to allow for that wave to really explode, and for the discussion about what the profile of a technology professional looks like to broaden in the future.
So I'm going to take the fast forward 5 years from now, put me in my mid-60s. So, but fast forward, and The Chamber has saved our river outside. I think Fort Gordon will have moved Army Cyber here. A lot of the major military construction programs will be completed, and they're already the proponent for Army Cyber, but I mean, hopefully in the future with our world-class ads on Fort Gordon, it could be the proponent for the Department of Defense for cyber. And we live in an area where our kids are now graduating from the cyber tracks that are in our high schools, and they're moving into the workforce. Our parking is cured by flyable cars that hover into our spaces and those type of things. But a closing comment is, if you're here and you're a business and you don't belong to your chamber, you should. I didn't realize that when I was in uniform, but spending 3 years next to community champions like Supar, Tammy, and Tara, and David, they do a lot of these champion efforts on your behalf. And the feeds that they send you about our region and the business opportunities, it's such a low investment for a business. And I could tell you, as a career military person, I did not realize what the chambers do, what the economic development folks do. And also a shout out to Mr. Casimir, the deputy of the commanding general of Fort Gordon, is in the audience. But we are blessed to have Fort Gordon in the backyard of our region.
Well, thank all of you for being here and speaking today. I want to say a special thank you to all the guests in the audience and appreciate you sticking with us. Thank you for a wonderful event. Thank you, Karen Nixon and Rob Dennis, for putting this together, and look forward to next time. You'll have a great day.